we're back at it again. Same thing. Loading trucks out here this morning. My okra's finally picking up too. We're getting maybe about 7 buckets a day right now. Could pick up more later, but that's a pretty good bit for right now. You have to pick this okra every single day. This is a good size. It's still tender, but if it starts getting longer out to here, it's going to get bigger around and get hard. So that's why we pick it every day, to keep it good and tender. And if you skip a day, you'll certainly know it. But we don't bring the big stuff in. If we have stuff that we miss is too big, we'll just pull it off and throw it on the ground. This is what I was talking about on the video previously, about the guys getting all they can get. This guy's got 35 boxes of assorted stuff stuffed in his back seat headed home. And then he's fixing to load up his bed with watermelons and cantaloupes. This is a nice, pretty load of watermelons here. Going to Arkansas. All right, well, welcome back. We have survived Hurricane Beryl. We ended up with about 3 inches of rain. Some pretty good wind, but not really anything that would hurt my crops. We lost maybe some peaches on the ground, but it wasn't terrible. But we had some major tornadoes in our area. Lots of damage. We were on they talk about that front right quadrant when the hurricane is spinning, and that's where we were. That's where the most severe weather is, when the hurricane comes inland or on land. And I think our local news said there was between 65 and 70 tornado warnings that day that it came through. And probably about 1/4 of those did a lot of damage. So there's still people without power. It was kind of in our Ark-La-Tex region. So anyway, the weather seems to be kind of back to normal. The fields are drying out. So, but we're doing this same thing every day. If you watch my last video, that's just what we do all summer, and it doesn't really change until we run out. Once we close up to the public, we'll kind of switch gears and go more wholesale, or all wholesale really. And then we'll start doing some cleaning up and getting ready for some fall crops and different things. But our late watermelons are looking good. Our sweet potatoes are looking good. Our late peas are looking good. I'll show you those. Right now, we're picking at the end of the 3rd peas and the beginning of the 4th peas, and we're kind of in a little bit of a gap, which is frustrating because we got the weekend coming up, and we sell a lot of peas every day, but we sure sell a lot on the weekends, and I'm not going to have that many, but that's just how it works out sometimes. That's why it's so important to try to keep my timing on my spacing, on my planting of my peas. But when I don't have the timing right, it's not because I'm not on top of it, it's because it's too wet whenever it gets time to do it. So anyway, we're not without any, which is good, but they finished the 3rd. They're trying to find some in the 4th. There's just not a whole lot ready, but anyway, we're still picking purple hulls though every day along with everything else. But we are going to run out of watermelons before my late crop is ready, which again, it's all about the timing. They got ready a week early and they're going to finish early, and the late crop of melons were planted normal or maybe a little bit after normal time. So all that factors in. So we're gonna have a skip here without any, which all the trucker guys will be back, but it'll force them to have to go somewhere else or either do without, one or the other. So I'm hoping to go to the end of July to the public. Well, I feel like for sure we will. Maybe longer. We got to play it by ear once we get to the end of July and see if it's worth staying open. I mentioned in the last video that we have a middleman that comes to get some excess. We've actually got two. This is an example. He's picking this up today. There's 40 tomatoes and about maybe 5 or 6 cucumbers and 5 squash loaded on a pallet of 50. So you know, that helps us out a lot whenever we get a lot of something. Trailers that we use to haul the watermelons and cantaloupes, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it or not. I think these are 24 foot, but they're old cotton trailers that my dad and granddad had years ago back, you know, when they grew cotton and everybody around here grew cotton, and before they had module builders and of course now the module pickers and all. But every farm had tons of cotton trailers, and of course they're kind of extinct now, but lots of these farmers still use them for hay trailers or feed trailers, but they're perfect for this too. We've got several of these, and every watermelon and every cantaloupe and every sweet potato that we've harvested in the last however many years have been hauled on these cotton trailers like this, and we replaced these floors on them. You know, they had those old metal floors. Of course, they used to have sides on them, you know, up 8 foot or more all the way around. Take the sides off. We replace these floors, put plywood on them, 3/4 plywood every 3 or 4 years, and they're perfect. They can haul. We usually put 7 bins, just to not overload it any more than that. But most of the cotton trailers used to be 24 foot or 32 foot or 40 foot. We used to have some 40 foot ones, but they're a little, you know, obviously you can't maneuver them around quite as good in tighter spaces. With these 24 foot are perfect for me. All right, these are the peas right here, purple hulls, that we're trying to find some that were ready. You can see a lot of them are just almost there. We're kind of skipping around a little. You know, you'll find one like this here and there, but there'll be lots of peas come off these long rows right here. Over here, this is just an example. This is planting number 4. This is planting number 6. I've got one in a different location in between the ages of these two. But you can tell these are nice and pretty. Of course, they've had plenty of moisture, so they ought to do good. Probably won't have to irrigate probably any more peas at all, except for maybe the last ones, you know, if it turns off hot and dry. These are some of the zipper cream crowders that we'll have next. They're a little bit behind the purple hulls. If you plant the purple hulls and the zippers in the same day, the purple hulls are always going to be ready first. So it kind of works out good. If you plant some in the same day, by the time we get through picking that planting of purple hulls, and the zipper cream crowders will be ready. But they always make a ton of peas. It doesn't take a lot to make a lot of zipper cream crowders. We've got some long rows of these here too. Right, these are my very first oldest watermelons on the plastic. You can tell we've already plowed up the middles. We're through with them. What I do here every year, I give it a try, and it works less than half the time, and I don't know why it works sometimes and doesn't work the other. But there have been times where we have plowed these middles up You can see it's already putting out new growth here. We will make a complete full second crop of watermelons. Conditions, I guess, have to be just perfect. I mean, you can see that's green and healthy, and you know, I mean, another week or two and they'll all be out here. But sometimes the disease gets them, even though I'll keep spraying them, but I won't be quite as aggressive spraying them until I see, you know, it looks like we may make something. But we usually try it and see, you know, before we just immediately start cleaning this up. And I mean, it doesn't cost anything other than maybe we'll spray it a few more times, you know, if it looks like we're gonna make something. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. But I mean, these vines look pretty healthy right here. But once again, this is the first oldest round one of the watermelons. We've picked them all, plowed the middles, and left it. Pretty sunrise on a July, Louisiana morning. These will be the 5th peas between the two I just showed you as far as age-wise. And this will be where we'll come back and double crop our cabbage behind this field here. Here's our lake cantaloupes. Let's see if I can find a little baby one. There's one right here that aborted from that big heavy rain from the hurricane. There we go, right there. Baby cantaloupe. All right, these next 6 rows are gonna be our late yellow ones, yellow watermelons. There's a little one. I think we've got some bigger ones in here though. Let me find them. Oh yeah, here's one. Tell by my hand kind of how big it is. Probably be about the first week of August on that. And we've come through and pulled these weeds, pigweeds, once. You can see some of them that we've thrown out in the middle. We'll probably have to come back over it again and kind of hope for the best, but so far it's not terrible. But the more rain you have, the more weed problems you have. Let's see if we can find a little red watermelon. It's not big, but there's one right there. We're probably looking at 10th of August maybe. I think we had some on here before all that rain and we lost them. They'll do it when they're just tiny and you get a bunch of rain and it sits on that wet ground. On these drive roads here, they're more narrow than my plastic field on the pattern. You know, this will be the wheel of the tractors right here. So we'll have to come back pretty soon and flip those vines maybe one time just to keep them kind of going in the other direction. All right, these here are my last, very youngest peas next to the last youngest pea. So this is planting number 7, planting number 8. We'll be picking these in August, maybe up to Labor Day, especially those youngest ones. All right, these are my sweet potatoes. You can see how they've just about covered all the ground. You can still see a few bare spots, but in places, you know, it's solid coverage. So we've still got some pigweeds out through here we need to pull. And other than that, we'll just keep them sprayed and, you know, water them if we need to. Alright, I have made my way back to the field on the tractor, and I'm getting ready to spray insecticide on my sweet potatoes and some of my youngest peas. While I was sitting here, I thought I would explain a few more things that maybe I have not explained already. On the last video, we showed you bringing in the squash every morning, bringing in the cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, all that. I don't think I've ever explained exactly, how we pick them in the field as far as the rotation. All the cucumbers, all the squash, all the peppers are gone over and picked every single day. The only day we skip is Sundays. We don't pick anything on Sunday mornings or Sunday at all. If we skip a day like Sunday, because we do skip Sunday, then we have a lot of extra big squash and extra big cucumbers on Mondays. It's that way every Monday. We can sell some of that, but if we picked every other day all the time, I would have way too much of it that was too big. So we go over all that every day, or 6 days a week. Same with the okra. You skip a day, you're going to have some that's too big. Same with the cantaloupes. We go over all the cantaloupes every day and check them. On Mondays, we always have twice as many cantaloupes, but if we picked them every other day, we would have some that would get too ripe. They get ripe real quick. Watermelons, tomatoes are different. We start on one side of the field, tomatoes, same with watermelons, and wherever we stop, we'll start there, right there the next day, and keep going and get across and start back over and go across. So that kind of gives you an idea. We water everything on the drip and the plastic every single day. It gets watered. Now, when we have a big storm like the hurricane we had, where we get 3 inches in a few hours, then we'll cut the water off for a couple of days, but we've already started it back. So the squash, cucumbers, peppers, all that grows so fast. It's hot at night here in the summer. You give it water every day. You have to pick it every day. So those kind of crops are tough, because if you get into a weather pattern where maybe you have to skip, then you're going to end up with a bunch of stuff that's too big. So I have to be careful about not planting too much of the kind of things that you have to pick every single day, as far as going over all of it every day, if that makes sense. So that kind of gives you an idea of how often things are picked. On the tomatoes, I can't tell you how long it takes us to go over all of it. It depends on how many are ready. Kind of right now it's the peak time, so it takes us a while to get across, and so when it does, we get more redder tomatoes than we normally would. The watermelons, we usually don't get behind. I mean, it takes us, depending on how many there are, it takes a while to get across, but they pick them good enough to where by the time they get to one side and start back over to the other side, that those will be ready. So it kind of takes a lot of trial and error and figuring all that out. In the past, I've had more cucumbers than I really needed, so I've scaled back some. Same with the cantaloupes. I've scaled back some compared to what I used to be, and we still have plenty. But watering every day really keeps everything growing fast and keeps it producing good. On the cantaloupes, it's really important for me to try to get rid of all of what I have by the end of the day, so I don't have to hold any over. That doesn't always happen, but most of the time it does. The cantaloupes you got to get them and move them. I don't ever keep any in the cooler or anything like that. I just try to get rid of all I got by the end of the day. And there's been years where we've had way too many, and that's why, like I said, I've scaled back, but yet our sales are really about the same. So it takes a long time to figure all that out if you're going to be doing this on a larger scale, and because you can plant as much as you want, but if you can't sell it, it's not worth anything. So it takes years, at least it did for me, to figure out the right crop mix, and things change, you know, and but for the most part, you know, the crop mix that we have now works pretty good for us. You know, by every year being different, you know, we used to have a lot more truckers in the back than we do now. Now we still have a lot, but we didn't have as many retail people back then. You know, but if you get 100 more retail people, just for an example, you know, that's 100 more cantaloupes a week if they buy one a week. But if you get 10 more truckers, then that may be, you know, several thousand more cantaloupes a week. So you know, things change. The trucker guys, most of them are older, and so unfortunately we have, you know, one or two that may pass away every year or either get too sick to do it. And so you know, of course you don't ever know that ahead of time, but you kind of gauge it by this year, and maybe I'll adjust a little for next year. But there always seems to be new truckers show up, but it's not going to be the younger folks. It's always going to be usually the older guys. Here's a view from the cab on the sweet potatoes. Alright, now I switched over to the youngest peas, giving them their insecticide treatment that we always give all the peas, you know, after they've been up for a week or two. Those of y'all watching in the north, this is what a cotton field looks like. Here's a cornfield on the opposite side of the road. Starting to dry down. They'll be combining by mid-August, probably, maybe before. Alright, I'm on the road headed back to the shop, so I'm probably going to end the video here. I just kind of wanted to give everyone a little update on the later crops. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers, so if you have not subscribed, I would appreciate it. And like our videos and all that, and get out of the way here before I get run over by this vehicle. Whenever we close up to the public and I have more time, I'll get some better harvest videos of the melons. If you watch my last video, you can kind of understand why I can't ever leave hardly at all the place that we sell. You know, I can't be out in the field getting a bunch of video of harvest while we're open selling. So, but I'll be able to do that later in the summer, and I'll get some of that. So until then, we will see y'all next time.